The strangest thing about my story is that it begins with a cup of coffee. It was a Tuesday, I think. The sun was that particular kind of gentle that only exists in autumn, pouring through our kitchen window and making the granite countertops glow. I was grinding beans. The noise, a familiar, comforting roar. And Mark was at the table, scrolling through his tablet. His reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. We'd been married for 12 years, and this scene was our morning symphony. It was a beautiful, predictable piece of music I thought I knew by heart. "Late meeting tonight?" he asked, not looking up. "Just the usual," I said, my voice a little too bright, a little too rehearsed. "Might run errands after, beat the weekend crowd." He simply nodded, taking a sip of the coffee I placed before him. "Sounds good, honey. Don't work too hard." That was it. That was the moment the first domino fell, though I wouldn't hear the clatter for months. I remember looking at him, really looking, and feeling a pang of something that was equal parts guilt and pity. He seemed so ordinary. His hair was thinning a little. His tie was a conservative blue, and his whole world seemed to be contained within the walls of our suburban home and his architectural firm. I, on the other hand, felt like I was bursting with a secret life. His quiet stability, the very thing I'd once loved, now felt like a cage. His name was Liam. He worked in the graphic design department at my office. Where Mark was solid oak, Liam was flowing water, all easy laughter, creative ideas, and intense, flattering attention. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. Our affair wasn't a torrid, passionate explosion. It was a slow, quiet drift. It started with long lunches, then after-work drinks that stretched into hours, then stolen afternoons in a bland, anonymous hotel room downtown. It wasn't about the physical act, not really. It was about the conversation, the feeling of being fascinating again. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone. Mark was oblivious, buried in his blueprints and sports highlights. Our marriage had become a comfortable partnership, a well-managed household. Liam made me feel like a woman, not just a wife. But the guilt was a constant, low-grade hum in the background of my life. I became a better wife, ironically. I cooked Mark's favorite meals more often. I was more attentive, asking about his projects, listening to his stories with an almost manic focus. It was my way of balancing the scales. He never suspected a thing. He'd kiss me goodbye in the morning, and I'd feel his trust like a physical weight. Sometimes, I'd catch him looking at me with a soft, fond expression, and I'd quickly look away, my heart hammering against my ribs. The first crack appeared about 4 months in. I came home one evening after seeing Liam. I'd been careful, as always. A different perfume in my bag. Paid for in cash. I walked into our bedroom, and Mark was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding one of my earrings. It was a simple silver stud. "Found this in the car," he said, his voice neutral. "On the passenger seat. You must have lost it this morning." My blood ran cold. I had worn those earrings to the hotel. I never wore jewelry with Liam, except that day. I'd taken them off in his car, fumbling with them nervously. I must have dropped one. I must have... I stammered, my face heating. "Thanks." He handed it to me, his fingers brushing my palm. His touch was warm, but his eyes, they held a strange, unreadable depth for just a second before it was gone, replaced by his usual calm demeanor. "You should be more careful with these. They were a gift." That was the first time I felt a prickle of unease. It was so small, so insignificant, but it felt like a warning shot across the bow of my secret life. Then, small things started to happen. My favorite lipstick, the one I only wore for Liam, went missing. I tore my purse apart, searched the entire house, and it was just gone. Mark helped me look, his expression one of genuine concern. A week later, it reappeared in the very first place I had looked, at the bottom of my handbag. I wrote it off as stress, as my own carelessness. The emails started next, not threatening ones, just odd. I'd get a notification for a reservation at a restaurant I'd never heard of, or a confirmation for a weekend getaway to a cabin I hadn't booked. When I'd call to cancel, confused, the customer service reps would say the bookings had been made from my email account. I changed my password, convinced my account had been hacked. Mark was sympathetic. "The world is full of weirdos, Julia," he'd say, shaking his head. "Just be careful." The most unsettling incident happened one Saturday. Mark was out playing golf, and I was home alone, nursing a quiet anxiety. The doorbell rang. It was a delivery man with a huge, beautiful bouquet of white lilies. My heart leapt into my throat. Liam knew they were my favorite. This was too bold, too dangerous. My hands trembled as I took the vase, searching for a card. There was none. I texted Liam, my fingers flying across the screen. "Did you send flowers?" "You can't do that." His reply was almost instantaneous. "What? No. Of course not. Are you crazy?" I stood in the hallway, staring at the innocent, fragrant blooms. They felt like an accusation. Who had sent them? Later, when Mark came home, he noticed them immediately. "Wow, those are beautiful," he said, leaning in to smell them. "Who are they from?" I don't know," I said, my voice thin. "No card." He gave me a slow, sweet smile. "A secret admirer? Well, their taste is excellent. They suit you." He kissed my forehead and walked upstairs to shower. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. The look in his eyes? It wasn't jealousy. It was something else. Something knowing. The affair with Liam began to fray. The stolen moments were now tinged with my growing paranoia. I was jumpy, constantly looking over my shoulder. Liam grew frustrated with me. "You're not present anymore, Julia," he said during one of our last meetings. "You're a million miles away." He was right. I was. I was back in my own house, trying to decipher the cryptic, unsettling patterns that were weaving themselves around me. The final straw, the moment the entire illusion shattered, came on a night I will never forget. I had told Mark I was attending a work conference in the city, a full-day event with a dinner afterward. It was a lie, of course. Liam and I had planned a full 24 hours together, a rare and risky treat. We'd checked into a nice hotel, one far from our usual haunt. For a few hours, I managed to push the unease away. We ordered room service, talked, and for a little while, I felt that old thrill. Then, around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. My heart stopped. "Hope the conference is going well, honey," it read. "You left your presentation notes on the kitchen counter. The ones you spent all week on. Looks important. Do you want me to scan and email them to you?" The room tilted. I never left notes behind. I was meticulous. And I hadn't prepared any notes for a conference that didn't exist. A cold, sickening dread began to pool in my stomach. "No, it's okay," I typed back, my fingers clumsy. "I have it all on my laptop. Thanks, though." "Are you sure?" he replied a moment later. "There's a whole section here highlighted in pink. Something about quarterly projections?" I had never worked on quarterly projections. I worked in marketing for a nonprofit. My blood turned to ice. He was describing someone else's notes. He was testing me. "Must be your stuff, sweetie," I wrote, "not mine." There was a long pause. Then, his final text came through. "You're right. My mistake. Have a good night. I love you." I put the phone down, my whole body trembling. Liam asked what was wrong, but I couldn't speak. I knew, with a terrifying, absolute certainty, that Mark knew. He had known for a long time. The earring, the lipstick, the phantom emails, the flowers. It was all him. He wasn't a oblivious, trusting husband. He was an architect, a man who built things from the ground up. And he was deconstructing my life, brick by careful brick. The revenge had already begun, and I had been too wrapped up in my own drama to even see it. The hunter had become the hunted, and I was only just realizing I was prey. The silence after that text was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I told Liam I wasn't feeling well, a pathetic understatement that barely scratched the surface of the seismic shift happening inside me. I left the hotel, the opulent room feeling suddenly cheap and sordid. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and swirling, panicked thoughts. Every set of headlights in my rearview mirror felt like his eyes watching me. He knew. The simple, terrifying truth of it echoed in my skull. Mark knew. I walked into our house, expecting a confrontation. I expected yelling, tears, slammed doors. I was braced for a storm. Instead, I found calm. The house was quiet and clean. Mark was in his study, the soft blue light of his computer monitor illuminating his face. He looked up as I entered the hallway, his expression unreadable. "You're home early," he said, his voice even devoid of accusation. "How was the conference?" The word hung in the air between us, a loaded grenade with the pin already pulled. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, my purse dangling from my limp hand, feeling like a stranger in my own home. "It was fine," I managed to whisper. He nodded slowly, then turned back to his screen. "Good. I'm glad." That was it. He didn't ask why I was home hours before I said I would be. He didn't question my obviously distressed state. The normalcy was a weapon, and he wielded it with devastating precision. I went upstairs, my legs weak, and crawled into bed, still in my clothes. I lay there in the dark, listening to the familiar sounds of the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards as Mark moved around downstairs. They were the same sounds I'd heard for 12 years, but now they felt alien and threatening. The next day, and the days that followed, were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Mark was perfect. He was attentive, helpful, and kind. He made coffee in the morning. He asked about my day. He remembered to pick up my dry cleaning, but it was all performed with a subtle, chilling distance, like an actor playing the part of a perfect husband. His eyes, when they met mine, held a new, flat quality. There was no warmth in them, no love, but also no anger. It was the look a scientist might give a specimen under a glass slide. My affair with Liam withered and died within a week. The thrill was gone, replaced by a pervasive, gut-wrenching fear. Every interaction with Liam felt tainted, dangerous. I ended it over a rushed, tense phone call, giving him a lame excuse about the guilt being too much. He was angry, calling me a coward. But I didn't care. I was too busy trying to navigate the minefield my life had become. I started noticing more things. Small, almost imperceptible changes. The books on our shelf were rearranged. My favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle, disappeared and was replaced by a new, pristine one. He'd play music I didn't like, claiming he'd developed a new taste for classical composers. He was slowly, methodically, erasing my presence from our shared life, remolding our environment into something I no longer recognized. I felt like a ghost haunting my own marriage. The real terror began when the outside world got involved. We attended a backyard barbecue at his colleague's house. It was a scene of suburban bliss, children laughing, the smell of grilled meat, the clinking of beer bottles. I was clinging to Mark's arm, playing the part of the happy wife. A smile plastered on my face that felt like it might crack at any moment. Mark was engaged in a conversation with a group of guys about golf. I was talking with Sarah, the colleague's wife, making idle chatter about gardening. Then, Mark's voice cut through the noise, clear and casual. "Yeah, Julia's been so busy with work lately she's never home." I tell her, "Honey, you're going to burn out. All those late nights and, well, all the extra hours. I hardly see her anymore." He said it with a fond, exasperated smile, and the other men chuckled sympathetically. But his words were daggers. He was painting a picture, laying the groundwork. He was telling them, and everyone who would listen, that I was distant, that I was never home. He was preparing the soil for the narrative he was building. Sarah gave me a slightly puzzled look. "I thought you worked standard hours at the nonprofit?" Before I could answer, Mark laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Oh, she does. But you know Julia. Always a project on the go. She's a whirlwind." He slipped his arm around my waist and pulled me close, his grip firm, almost possessive. It wasn't a hug. It was a cage. He kissed my temple, and I felt a shiver of pure revulsion mixed with fear. To everyone else, we were the picture of a loving, slightly quirky couple. To me, it was a public display of my imprisonment. A few days later, my mother called. "Julia, is everything all right with you and Mark?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Of course, Mom." "Why?" My heart started to hammer. "Well, I ran into him at the hardware store yesterday. He was so quiet, seemed a little down. I asked how you were, and he just said, 'Oh, you know Julia. She's got her own life these days.'" He said it with such a sad little smile. It just worried me. I felt the walls closing in. He wasn't just manipulating me. He was manipulating my world, my support system. He was isolating me, making me look like the villain, the neglectful, distracted wife, while he played the role of the long-suffering, devoted husband. I tried to talk to him about it that night, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. "Why are you telling people I'm never home? Why did you say that to my mother?" He looked up from his book, his expression one of innocent confusion. "Say what? I just said you were busy." "You are busy, Julia, aren't you?" He tilted his head, his eyes boring into mine. "You have been very preoccupied lately." The unspoken words hung in the air. "I know what you've been doing." I had no defense. I couldn't accuse him of anything concrete. He hadn't yelled, he hadn't threatened. He had simply held up a mirror, and the reflection was of my own making. I was being condemned not by his accusations, but by my own guilt, which he was expertly curating and displaying for all to see. The final piece of his revenge, the one that showed me the true depth of his planning, came on a Saturday morning. We were having a garage sale, his idea. He said it was time to declutter. I agreed, desperate for any semblance of normalcy. As people sifted through our old junk, I felt a small sense of relief. It was a mundane, ordinary task. Then, a woman, a neighbor from a few streets over, picked up a small, framed photograph. It was a picture of me and Liam, taken on one of our early, careless lunch dates. We were laughing, leaning into each other. It was an innocent enough picture to an outsider, but to me, it was a smoking gun. I had hidden that photo in a book in my bedside drawer. How had it gotten here? In a box of old kitchenware. My blood ran cold. I looked at Mark. He was across the driveway, helping a man load an old chair into a truck. He caught my eye over the roof of the car, and for a single, breathtaking second, the mask of the kind husband fell away. I saw the cold, calculated triumph in his eyes. He had planted it there. He wanted me to know that he could expose me at any moment, in the most humiliating way possible, surrounded by our neighbors. He was showing me that he held all the cards, that my fate was entirely in his hands. The woman put the photo down, uninterested, and moved on. But the damage was done. I stood there, surrounded by the detritus of our married life, and understood completely. This wasn't a heated reaction to betrayal. This was a carefully designed, slowly executed plan. He wasn't just trying to hurt me. He was trying to break me. And he was succeeding. The revenge was not in a single dramatic event. It was in the 1,000 tiny cuts of every day. In the silent, smiling destruction of my reality. He had become the architect of my ruin. And the blueprint was flawless. I finally broke on a Tuesday. The same gentle autumn sun was shining, but the house felt like a tomb. Mark was at the kitchen table, the same spot where this all began, sipping coffee. I stood before him, my hands shaking, and the words tumbled out a choked confession, a plea for forgiveness, for any kind of emotional response from the stone wall he had become. He listened silently, then set his mug down with a soft click. "I know, Julia," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I've known for months." He opened his tablet and slid it across the table. On the screen was a digital file, meticulously organized. It contained copies of hotel receipts I thought I'd hidden, screenshots of text messages I'd deleted, even a time-stamped log of my whereabouts. It was a full, cold case file of my betrayal. "I've already filed for divorce," he continued, his eyes devoid of the hurt I expected to see. There was only a quiet, absolute finality. "My lawyer has all of this. You see, I didn't want to fight. I wanted to win. And I have." He stood, picking up a single suitcase that had been waiting by the door. He was leaving, but he had already taken everything. The house, our friends, my dignity, it was all part of his design. His revenge wasn't a moment of rage. It was the patient, systematic dismantling of my life, until nothing was left but the truth, and the profound, echoing silence he left behind. He walked out, and I was alone, finally understanding that the quiet, ordinary man I had underestimated was the most formidable opponent I could ever have.